Hey everyone, and welcome back to the College Chats podcast. Well, the regular season is over, but that didn't stop the chaos from unfolding over the past weekend. Well, we should be talking about the Iron Bowl or the Egg Bowl or even the Conference Championships games coming up this weekend. We will instead be talking about an unprecedented weekend of coaching changes. But first, if you didn't know already, we are the College Chaps. I'm George, and I'm joined by my co-host, who I'm certain is destined to be the general manager of the Kent State Golden Flashes someday. Oliver, how are you, my friend?
I would absolutely love that job. I would absolutely love that job. It'd be incredible. There's no Maction tonight. There's no Maction tomorrow night. Like this is the saddest midweek show record that I think we've done for eight or 9 weeks. Thankfully we've got a great guest to drag the tone and tempo up because otherwise it'd just be me moping about there being no
Oliver,
Maction tonight.
you never mope, but you're right. We do have an excellent guest to bring this show to life. In fact, we had so much fun last time our guest was on. We couldn't wait to have him back on. In fact, the last time our guest joined us, he had just witnessed the chaos in Nashville as the Commodore shocked the world by beating Alabama. This time he's just witnessed the craziest coaching carousel in the history of college football. So when there's a crisis, we call our crisis management expert. So it's awesome to welcome back Chris Childers. Chris, welcome back. How are you?
I am awesome, and I am so happy to be back. I love coming on the College Chaps. It's been a weird couple of days in America. So, hello, how are you? We had
Yeah,
our Thanksgiving. We had our American Thanksgiving on Thursday, and it was really weird because I don't know if you have any like thought on what American Thanksgiving is, but essentially it is we get together, we have a big meal, it's turkey based, bunch of sides and all that, then we watch football. But it's like this nice family kind of you're off of work kind of day. And then from Friday through Sunday, it was just like it was weird after a holiday. It was really crazy.
and I guess to a certain degree we'll get onto this second, but there has been this build up, right? You know, these some of these teams we're going to talk about haven't had coaches since September, right? So there was this build up as we get to the end of the regular season, but it exploded in such a fashion that I certainly was, and I think we were all taken aback by just what happened over the course of Saturday and Sunday, which was clearly overshadowed by the situation at Ole Miss and then LSU. But equally, I think when you start to hear, and there's been a lot on social media and a lot written over the last couple of days about all of the discussions that were going on behind the scenes. I mean, three or four of these coaches who ended up in places could have ended up somewhere else. There was a jigsaw puzzle of quite some magnitude. Before we get on to Kiffin, what did you think about that whole weekend, Chris? The fact that Sumrall ended at Florida, but he could have easily ended up at Auburn or LSU, depending on which way the dice tumbled.
Yeah, it was musical chairs, and it was kind of everybody trying to piece together a puzzle as the weekend went on. And you saw, Sumrall land where he did at Florida, Alex Golish landing where he did at Auburn, Ryan Silverfield going to Arkansas, Pete Golding getting promoted at Ole Miss, and we, kind of had all this chaos happen on Sunday. To me, all that everybody was trying to do, they were trying to position themselves for the best guy available. That if it wasn't going to be Lane Kiffin, you saw everybody kind of go the same game plan. Memphis, Tulane, University of South Florida, everybody essentially is looking for the next Kurt Signetti. That really is all it comes down to. We're in this new era of college football. I always tell everybody everything you ever knew, everything that you ever thought about the game, everything that you ever perceived about the game, everything that you ever thought to be true, you had to take that out the window, even though it's hard. Because we had 100 and something odd years of history when it came to a certain way that college football went down. But once we went, it was June 21st, 2021, was the day the Alston ruling happened with the Supreme Court. And that was the day that the NCAA essentially amateurism died. In that moment, who was good, what was the way things were, changed. That's why you see Texas Tech having the success that they're having. They've made no bones about how they're doing it. They have two super boosters. that sold that energy company, Double Eagle. They got billions of dollars. They played Texas Tech football. They love their school, and they wanted to make them great. It's the same reason why they played for the College World Series softball championship. They went out there and they bought the best pitcher in the country, and that pitcher, Najee Kennedy, got them all the way to the final game, and they lost. But Texas Tech softball before that was nothing. So everything changed. So because of it, now you're trying to find, it's almost the established coaches. That's not the sexy hire anymore. The Kirby Smarts, the Dabos, guys like that. It's not the sexy hire because you're trying to find that Kurt Signetti. You're trying to find the guy that can operate within this new world. In an NIL world where this is all about how much money you can give players. Lane Kiffin said it. With Jimmy Sexton, it wasn't about how much money can you give Lane. It's about how much money do we have in the collective to pay our players. That ultimately will be the difference between, in his eyes, can he win a national championship or not. So in Arkansas's case, they had to go out there and find a guy with Ryan Silverfield that they thought could fight within the system with what they had. They had an interview that said, this is our resources. What's your plan? Silverfield laid it out, and they said, this is our guy. Same thing with Alex Golish in Auburn. I think he brings an edge. I actually think that guy is going to do a hell of a job there. I think he's got a certain spice to him, and he'll fit well as far as a character in the state of Alabama. But bottom line is this. It was a chaotic day. As everything was starting to unfold, you started to feel that the puzzle pieces were starting to settle. But even then, like Kentucky became a job that came open that was filled immediately. So it was clear that they had a plan going to Stein out there at Oregon, Will Stein, who was a former Louisville quarterback and Oregon's offensive coordinator. So it's clear some of these jobs, there was a clear plan in place. I know you guys talk a lot of SEC, but Michigan State, same deal. Jonathan Smith was let go, and within a day, Pat Fitzgerald takes over. So, it really is kind of interesting how everybody is sort of positioning themselves and trying to find the next guy that can really operate in this new era and find lightning in a bottle, much like you've seen with Indiana consistently being the number 2 team in America.
Yeah. I hope you saw Ollie's face when you said that we dwell on the SEC a lot. There was a look of horror on his face when he talked about that. But
sorry,
no, you're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, across college football, it's been quite unbelievable. When you look at how quickly UCLA sacked Foster way back, was that week 2, week 3, something like that? I mean, it's just, to my mind, it just shows you the way that the money is diverting a certain mindset. But just to go back to Oxford for a second, I mean, the way that all kind of unfolded, and if you were watching it, whether you were watching it on the SC network or you're watching it on social media, the way that all kind of unraveled was, it was box office. Now I know Ole Miss fans will absolutely regale at that, and I feel sorry for them, but it was incredible. And there's a movie or a book to be written about those 48 hours. There's definitely 2 schools of thought in terms of whether they should have let Kiffin stay and play through the playoffs, or whether they were right. Keith Carter was right to push him out the door. Where do you sit on that thought?
I'm on Team Keith Carter when it comes to that thought. If you're going to leave for another job in the SEC, you have absolutely no right to coach that team anymore. And essentially, the games moving forward act as a commercial for you in the new program. And so for me, it's not right. You're going to leave, you're going to go, you have to go. And the calendar's a problem. What we've done as far as all of this going down at this point in the year, and signing day being when it is, which is, Wednesday, December 3rd, which is insane. We moved that from the first Wednesday in February, which is where it should have stayed. We've had a lot of things in the calendar, bowl game preparation, championship game preparation, all of it happening all at once, the transfer portal, and it's caused this chaos. It's caused these moves to happen when they've happened, which essentially led to the Lane Kiffin thing happening. What made me so mad, though, was the way Lane Kiffin did it. I've been around him a little bit in the past. I've spent time with him one-on-one. I've never been impressed by the guy ever. I've never sat down with him and been like, damn, that guy's savvy or sharp or sophisticated. He always, to me, just kind of came off as kind of a goof. Like, I never really looked at that guy and was like, that's a guy I respect. That's the guy I'd send my kid to go play for. With that said, I think he illustrated why. He's just not the highest character guy. The funny thing is, and I'm not saying anything, I'm not like making any allegations, but it's incredible for those of us that live here, and I, cover the sport, and I live in Nashville, so I live in the heart of the southeastern part of the country, and it's amazing how many people have had opinions on this, how many people have given their 2 cents on this, and how many people look at it as it's a guy that essentially, if you want to better yourself, if you want to take another job, if you think the other place is great, wonderful. But when you have a kind of sort of public dalliance or the family is taking a recon visit to Baton Rouge in the midst of this run in Ole Miss's greatest season ever, because here's what's different. In the past, it was recruit the best players, go out there, coach them up, see what happens, yada, yada, yada. That was the way that it went. Nowadays, though, there are literally fans that are funding these teams. I mean, essentially, there are people, men and women, that gave that university and that school and that coach millions of dollars to have the team that he has this year. And essentially, because of the way he did it, it was just disrespectful. The dog Juice Kiffin is tweeting things out on Saturday about the championship field, Georgia and Ole Miss. Lane was tweeting out those little the book he's reading, which was kind of weirdly specific to what was going on with the coaching thing. It was like he was playing a game. And I think he thought that he could play it long enough. Oh, what I was trying to tell you earlier is that for people that live here, everybody seemingly has a Lane Kiffin story. Like everybody. If you are in Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Oxford, any one of those cities, like everybody seems to have a Lane Kiffin story, right? But when you do it the way that you do it, when you disrespect the people that essentially got you there, because this guy before Ole Miss was nothing more than a career putz. Al Davis with the Raiders flat out said when he fired him that he was conned. The Tennessee job, he was there for a year. He burned every bridge, pissed off Urban Meyer, leaves on his way out, ugly as hell. Then at USC, gets fired on the tarmac. Then Lane Kiffin gets the life raft of life rafts when Nick Saban saves his ass. And that divorce, I remember, I was at that game. I was at the Peach Bowl with Coach Neuheisel, covering it for Sirius XM when they played Washington in the Peach Bowl in the playoff. And we're at media day on the field, and he's nowhere to be found, Lane. And it was after that game that Lane Kiffin was fired as the offensive coordinator before the national championship. I mean, we all watch the Olympics, whether you're, Scottish American, whatever. And you understand, summertime, we're all looking for good dismounts when it comes to the vault and the men's and the women's gymnastics. The American women are really great at it. And we've seen some great dismounts. Lane Kiffin, when he leaves a job, it is faceplant dismount. It is like as ugly. It's like the field goal yesterday for the Giants where the guy hit the turf. It's as bad as it can be. And to me, it's just because, I don't know, man, he's wired different. I don't think he has the sort of respect for or even awareness of certain things that most people would just think are normal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think the whole you watched the press conference yesterday, the introductory press conference. It just, I don't know, it's something just not quite right there. And I think you hit the nail on the head about him not being allowed to coach within the SEC. I think this is the big thing, right, with the Kiffin situation versus everything else that we're seeing in this hiring cycle is, a guy like John Sumrall will coach Tulane out because it doesn't really matter. But you go from one SEC team to another SEC
and he's
team,
not tweeting about it and
well, yeah,
sending his family on
yeah.
missions to go. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Interestingly, Ole Miss has allowed Charlie Weiss back to be offensive coordinator for the
I
playoff
know.
run. I thought that was interesting. One last question on this situation. Not one last question, because George is going to throw one as well. But there was a lot of talk during this process of Lane Kiffin making up his mind, which I think he made his mind up a long time ago. They were just
I
a
do too.
massive charade for a long time. But
Hmm.
one of the big questions that everyone was talking about was, in its current form, is the LSU job better than the Ole Miss job? Now, the Ole Miss job is what it is because arguably of Lane Kiffin. But to your mind, Chris, when you look at those two programs, and we've talked about what he's going to have at his disposal in terms of recruiting and transfer portal with the NIL, but just flat out program against program right now as they currently stand, is the LSU job that much better than the Ole Miss job right now?
Here's what I would say to that. I've thought a lot about it, and I think it requires a hefty amount of research. Now, here's what I will say. Going back to what we just talked about, going back to that conversation that we just laid out there, because here's the deal. You look at the fact of the matter, June 21st, 2021, post all that Alston stuff, NIL goes live, all of that. If you just simply look at the program since that day, since that moment, Ole Miss has had more success. Now is that Lane Kiffin? Is that Brian Kelly? Up for debate. But the bottom line is this: Ole Miss has been more successful than LSU in this current era. Now, you could say the Ole Miss collective has been on it. They have essentially given Lane Kiffin, since the world changed and what was possible became possible, they gave Lane Kiffin the world. They allowed him to get out there and get the best transfers and to replenish his roster every year. And they gave him, I like to say, the finest of meats and cheeses. So from that perspective, now, the question is, was it sustainable? Is the money there long term? Have they dug into their pockets to the point where Lane got everything he could out of them, squeezed them like a lemon? Now he's wrung them dry, and this is the fruit of it all. We see a championship caliber team, but that they're at the end of their money because Mississippi, think about it. How many millionaires, billionaires are coming from the state of Mississippi? I don't know. How much big industry is coming from the state of Mississippi? I don't really know the answer to that. But in Louisiana, we know the state certainly has its heavy hitters, New Orleans, that area. Um, it really comes down to which program is the best sustained from a collective and NIL perspective. And I think Lane looked at the numbers and decided that it was LSU. But to your point, in the current, in the now, today, the better job is Ole Miss. And I think that's what's so interesting about it. And I think Lane looked at it the right way, though. He simply looked at what money do I have to spend? And he chose LSU. And that's not, again, like you want to go take another job, fine. Even if it's within the SEC, fine. The way you did it, the way you disrespected people, the way you did it publicly, the way that it became a just George commented on one of my posts when I said I was talking to a Hollywood actress not long ago about this Lane Kiffin thing. And the actress is somebody named Susan Walters, who is a star in a soap opera called The Young and the Restless. And she just won a daytime Emmy a couple weeks ago for Best Supporting Actress. Young and the Restless has been on CBS forever. If you've seen the show Seinfeld, she was the character Mulva in a couple of episodes when they, Jerry didn't know her name and he just knew that it was something that rhymed with a female body part and he guessed Mulva. So that's her. So anyway, her and I are great friends. She's a big Georgia fan and we talk all the time about this stuff. And she's, been giving me her 2 cents on the whole deal. And it's just like, it's incredible the arrogance here. It's incredible when you just kind of look at the guy is simply taking something that has reached you guys. And let's put it this way. You're sitting there in Scotland, you're sitting there in Europe, and this sport has touched you. The passion, the fever pitch, the excitement, the There's a reason George comes to Atlanta. There's a reason, it's something special. And I think what's sad is that Lane Kiffin, and he really said as much when he talked about the players, has turned it into something that's purely transactional. He doesn't look at the name on the helmet or the name on the jersey. He looks at, this is what I have to spend, and this is the better job because I can win football games here. When the only reason people are paying him that money is because of the passion of the fans. He might look at it transactional, and the players might even look at it transactional nowadays, as he said last week, that they won't care if he leaves because that's not the way it works anymore. Maybe he's right, but the bottom line is the fans that are packing the stadiums, without them, nobody's making a dime.
It's fascinating though, Chris, isn't it? Because the more you get into it, and you make a valid point, we're one of 1,000, 2,000 podcasts talking about this at this moment in time. The airwaves are full of it. Everyone is talking about this. They say, there's no such thing as, bad press, but, the college football is being highlighted for what's going on just now. But I go back to listening to Kiffin over the last 3 or 4 years, well, longer that I've been covering it. But he always made the point about calling out the Ole Miss fans, right? He always made the point about Vaught Hemingway not being full and having to bang a drum to get people to turn up. And I think that was one of the things that drove him. But you've hit the nail on the head. It's ironic that the Grove Collective is one of the most successful,
Yeah.
certainly most improved NIL collectives in the country, right? So to your point about whether that money's going to be there, it's going to be interesting to see whether the money won't follow Kiffin. I don't mean this, right? The money goes to Kiffin because he's Kiffin, or the money stays, people continue to contribute to the Grove Collective because it's Ole Miss, which intuitively should be the case, right? But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I knew fine well we're going to run out of time, but just very quickly before we move on to something else, Pete Golding, do you think that's the right move?
I don't know. I mean, I want it to be. I like Pete. The defense wasn't the reason they were successful. I think Pete certainly has a great pedigree in the SEC. He's been around. He was at Alabama. He knows the league. Could I see it potentially being what happened at Mississippi State after Mike Leach tragically passed away and it was a disaster? Possibly. You hope not. You want the best for Pete, but I'm not overly. It seems a little panicky to me.
I am. That is a great point, right? And this is one of the biggest things with that I think from the Lane Kiffin situation is he's screwed them because if he'd have been straight up honest, Ole Miss could have gone out and got their guy. But by the time he was honest about the situation and said he was going, all the guys that we're about to talk about, all the guys, the hot guys in this coaching cycle, John Sumrall, Alex Golesh, Bob Chesney, all of those guys were gone. And I like Pete Golding, right? I think Pete Golding doesn't get enough credit for the success that Ole Miss has had because without what he's done with that defense for the past 2 years, they're a fun offense that was losing a lot of games. So I think he doesn't get enough credit, but I certainly don't think like hands on heart, everyone at Ole Miss that Pete Golding was their guy in this cycle. Now it seems like he was the guy the players want when this whole situation boils down. But I think Lane Kiffin really screwed them with the hiring process for his predecessor.
I kind of wish they would have hired Brian Kelly. It
Oh,
would have been the
God.
funniest thing. It would have been the funniest thing ever. It really would have been. They could have. I think Brian Kelly's a really good coach. I just don't think he's a good coach in the SEC. I think Brian Kelly will get a Big Ten job eventually and have success. Like he might go to Wisconsin in a year or something like that. But
Penn State might have to take him because at this rate, Penn State, no one
that
wants to
thing's
work for Penn
getting
State.
weird. It's weird. And have you heard the reasons why people think it's weird? Because Jimmy Sexton, who controls everything, George, you know what he looks like? I bet you've seen him. I swear to you, I bet you've seen him in a press box and didn't even know it. Because I like last year, my producer Allie, who's as big of a football fan that exists, he was behind us at the Georgia Alabama game, and I'm tapping her on the shoulder. I'm like, look behind us. She looks, and this is a guy we talk about every day. She doesn't know who it is. It's the guy's just a name. He controls everything, but he's kind of anonymously in the background. And he was representing James Franklin, and apparently he was so pissed that Penn State fired him, and he kind of owns all the big clients that he sabotaged their coaching search. I mean, that's just the rumor out there, but I'm telling you what, I would not be surprised. That's how much this guy has power. It's crazy.
Another guy who was meant to be going to Penn State isn't going just now. Kalani Sitake is telling everyone he's staying at BYU right now as we speak.
Holy! Oh shit!
They're getting desperate.
Oh man,
they might have to hire Brian Kelly at this point. They might have to. Who knows? Go get Bill O'Brien back or something. It's crazy.
Oh, they can have Bill O'Brien
They
back.
can have him right now
pleasure.
for
Yeah,
Nichols.
For
Nichols.
I'm a Boston College fan. They can take Bill O'Brien right now.
A hot shepherd's pie. They'll trade Bill O'Brien for that.
A cold one.
Believe me. And an iron brew.
An iron brew. There we go.
Heck yeah.
There we go.
I got to buy them individually, but I get them all the time. They don't sell them in like the packages over here, but it's worth it. Love the iron brew.
We touched on some names. You touched on some names when we did the quick whip around of who's gone where in the SEC, particularly. I just wanted to touch on a couple of those moves and just your thoughts on those. Let's start with John Sumrall to the Gators. What's your thoughts on the fit there?
I like him. I think he's a great coach. I think he knows that part of the country. He's from, the Louisiana area. He understands, how to recruit. I think what he did at Tulane was kind of prove that he knows how to work in this era. So I think for them, it's not flashy, sexy, but ultimately I think it's probably the right hire for them. I like him. I think he's a guy that isn't necessarily Kurt Signetti, but it's going to have some success there.
I think I said it earlier this week. He's a guy who doesn't know how to lose, and that's the difference between a lot of Florida fans are like,
Totally.
this is Billy Napier all over again. Like that's their thought process. I think John Summerall's a very different beast to Billy Napier.
Just because he's a group of 5 coaches is the reason they're saying that. That's the only
Oh,
comparison.
yeah, 100%.
That's the only
100%.
comparison. They want the big, flashy, proven Lane Kiffin, and there was just one of them, and he went to Louisiana.
The other name that jumped off the page at me, and I actually think Auburn might have the best hire of them all, Alex Golish. Now, we know, well, we thought that he was going to Arkansas, right? And to me, that would have been a fantastic hire for Arkansas, albeit I'm not sure they've got the same level of finances behind them. Certainly that Auburn have, right? I think Auburn have pushed the boat out. It sounds like Golish got cold feet with Arkansas and Auburn jumped in. But what do you think? Do you agree that might be the best hire of the lot?
I do. Auburn is one of those weird programs. They got every ability to have national championship success. They got the passionate fan base. They've got the beautiful facilities. They've got everything that you possibly need. They're in a state where you can get recruiting down well. They've got wealthy alumni. That's a great school, Auburn. They got all of it. And it's just been kind of odd because they self-sabotage themselves all the time. It's been the weirdest roller coaster ever when it comes to them since they won that national title with Gene Chizik, and they fired Chiz a couple of years after the title. Their offense was broken, and then they've just been on this weird ride. With the Gus had success, but they fired him in not so ceremonious terms. So it's kind of been all over the place. But at the end of the day, it has potential if you have somebody who's just a flat out badass. And I think that's what Alex Golish is. I really do. I think he's that kind of guy. I mean, the guy's had success. He certainly understands the SEC. He was there as an offensive coordinator at Tennessee. At South Florida, he's knocked off some major opponents. He's got a grit to him. He's got a little piss and vinegar to him. I think in that state, you've spent time there, it's a religion. It's, to me, like Auburn, you could compare them to Hearts, right? Like they got it all. They got the fan base. They don't win damn thing, and then you've got sitting there, Rangers or Celtic or whoever you're into, that's Alabama, that just makes your life a living hell all the time. But you want so desperately to be them. They might actually have somebody that can do it. They might. I'm with you. I think he's the best. The guy that I don't really like the hire for is Ryan Silverfield in Arkansas. And the reason I say that is because to me, Memphis was one of the better set up programs at the group of five level, and he didn't really hit it big. They had FedEx money. Fred Smith, for those that are listening, Federal Express. I have no idea what you guys use to ship over there outside of DHL. But here we have obviously United States Postal, FedEx, and UPS, right? So FedEx is based out of Memphis, and it's a huge shipping company. And Fred Smith, who just passed away like 2 months ago, he said, he's like, I want to, now that we're playing ball with NIL, let's play ball. So he was given Ryan Silverfield in that program quite a bit of advantage. And to me, he never was able to do it when he had the advantages. Now that he doesn't have the advantages, I honestly think they were better off with Sam Pittman, is my personal opinion.
I think you look at Memphis. I was going to say this year, but let's use last year as an example as well, because that's when SMU left the AAC, and everyone was like, right, Memphis is going to be the new SMU. Like
because of FedEx,
the conference is there for the taking. Then this year was just so bad. It started with all the FedEx money, and your expectations are obviously then astronomical. They tried to get into the Big 12, and the Big 12 were like, no, thank you very much. And then the product on the field, like 8-4 season in the AAC, is not the expectation for Memphis football. And I think like a lot of Arkansas fans look at this hire as a guy that a lot of Memphis fans wanted Ryan Silverfield gone, and now we've just picked this guy up as our head coach. To your point, Chris, like I think there's people around Arkansas who probably would rather have had Sam Pittman right now.
Of all the I think they really truly thought that when they made the move, the team was going to show marked improvement under Bobby Petrino. I think everybody that was sitting there in that athletic department, Hunter Yurachek on down, anticipated Bobby Petrino was getting that job. And then they just couldn't do it. I mean, the program just didn't ever get better. And so they had to go out there, they had to go find somebody. And I'm kind of in that way of thinking that, Memphis fans aren't necessarily upset that he's gone. And that should be telling for a team that is making a hire in the SEC that fired their coach because he wasn't good enough. And hopefully he proves us wrong, but I'm not betting on it. Like the biggest upside guy to me is Alex Golish. And then probably the safest bet is Sumrall. And then, from there, the biggest wild card as far as the elite money is Lane Kiffin, even though there's what has Lane Kiffin ever won?
Well,
tell me the championships he has on his resume.
Well, he's certainly not won any hearts and minds this weekend either.
No.
Certainly. So
apparently it's not even his dog.
No. Yeah, so I heard that's a story as well. That's a story.
That just makes me so pissed. It was
that's a story for a whole different podcast.
One redeeming value the guy had was that he was a good dog owner, and he's not even there, apparently.
Let's finish up with a guy who I love in this coaching hiring, firing cycle, who he's going to UCLA of all places, which I think a lot of people had Bob Chesney earmarked for greater things than a dumpster fire like UCLA. Talk to me, Chris, a little bit about your thoughts on the move for UCLA. Presumably, you same as me, you thought Bob Chesney would end up somewhere else, and kind of that element of this whole bizarre coaching, hiring, firing cycle.
Well, I think they got themselves a stud right now. I really do.
Yes, sir.
They got themselves a coach that, you want the next Kurt Signetti? Where did he come from? James Madison. Who did you hire? The guy that was at James Madison, who understands the culture, the lay of the land, and I would not be shocked if he takes a lot of those kids from James Madison with him out to Los Angeles the exact way Signetti did at Indiana and have the same kind of success. And wouldn't it be something? For UCLA, Bob Chesney had to have been promised something that UCLA simply is not promised to people in the past. Chip Kelly left that job on his own accord to take not even a similar, a coordinator position in the same league 2 years ago. Okay? Or 3 years ago, whatever it was. So that to me shows you everything you need to know. I mean, the past coach didn't even have a chance. I mean, that he had a press conference that was a disaster at media days. I mean, the whole thing about it just seemed very Bush League. Very, if this was talking English football, very National League North. You know what I mean? Just kind of very putsy-futsy. And it's kind of amazing to me because UCLA must have said, this is the plan to support the program. And Chesney had to have bought into it for him to take that chance. It's not like he's super West Coast background either. So, like, for me, clearly, they had to say, we got NIL money, we got collective money, we've been sitting on a pile, it's like DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck, and we've got a massive vault of cash waiting for you. And I think it's the best hire they could have possibly made, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's wild. It really is wild, given all the upheaval that's going on at UCLA. They're trying to get out of the lease at the Rose Bowl. They're going to go to SoFi Stadium. The program seems in pieces. He is the ideal guy to go in, but it's just none of us expected that to be the case. Because we've taken up far too much of your time. But before you go, I'm just intrigued, going back to Penn State, right? Tennessee's just had an 8-4 season. Heupel was linked to the Penn State job. He said no. We all know that there were rumblings through the season that Tennessee fans who are wildly optimistic at the best of times, there was some discussion about whether Heupel was the guy to take them forward. If Penn State come back in with a hard offer, could Heupel end up at Happy Valley?
If I were him and I was offered that job, I would take it. Tennessee fans kind of showed this year both sides of the coin because they praised him when he let Nico Iamaleava walk out the door. Praised him for taking a stand, not letting a kid hold the program hostage. Yet this year they went 8-4. Not bad. Certainly not elite, not playoff good, but considering what just happened in the spring and the fact that you said, well, that's our guy, man, what a stand. What did you think you were going to be? What Ohio State is? Or, I mean, to me, it's unrealistic. Tennessee is a program that was lost, that was down in the dumps, that was a massive pile of unsuccessful average for a while. And the fact of the matter is, Josh Heupel and Danny White collectively have fixed it. And to me, it's almost like they're becoming victims of their own expectations. But I just suggest to Tennessee fans to remember what it was like 5 years ago and how non-competitive you were, how ugly the process was of finding coaches. What happened with Greg Schiano when Clay Travis essentially blitzkrieged that thing and it blew up overnight and they end up, God, who did they hire in that moment? Was it Joe? I don't even remember, but it's been such a disaster. So for me, they really need to appreciate what they have. I'm not sure they do, which would put our boy in play.
Yeah. Wildly expecting fan base. That's all the time we've got. Chris, I know it's difficult for our listeners to get access to your stuff because you're in Sirius XM, but as I said in my last trip, it's well worth paying the $20 to get it put in the car when you're over. But let everybody know where they can find you, what you're up to, what we can watch out for, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, if you're in the United States, if you're on a trip, go get Sirius XM in the car. You can listen to me on Channel 84, College Sports Radio. You can listen to me on Mad Dog Sports Radio on the weekends, and on X, Childers Radio, all that good stuff. So plenty of ways to find me.
Cannot miss you. That's thank you. That's all from us. Thanks to Chris and Ollie for just being brilliant. Thanks to you for listening and supporting us. Stay safe and well, and catch you all next time.